If you're ready to buy a home, it is really critical that you understand the exclusive buyer agency agreement because in North Carolina, you must have some form of buyer agency agreement signed, whether for 1 day or long term, in place before going to tour properties. It is actually part of the rules that have been put out by the North Carolina State Real Estate Commission. All right. So today we are going to review the exclusive buyer agency agreement so that I can answer all of the questions that you have about it. We are going to go through it very thoroughly, line item by line item. And if you do have any questions, please drop them below. I sincerely watch all of the comments. I read them, I respond to them so that I can ensure that I'm giving you the most confidence as the buyer moving forward. Hi, my name is Nina Gervasi, and I am a top producing realtor here in the Triangle area. And again, it is really just my goal to make sure that you are the most informed buyer out there. So without further ado, let's jump in. In front of us here, we have the exclusive buyer agency agreement. At the top, you can see that this would be between you and the firm. And then on the last page would be your individual agent. And then you will list what it is that you're looking to purchase. Are you looking to purchase a multifamily home? Are you looking to purchase a single family or a townhome? In what areas? You would put that information here. Then you're going to let us know, are you already working with another real estate agent? Can't be working with two, so we need to understand that. Are you working with a relocation company? And we will be providing you with copies of the purchase contract and professional services disclosure, so you will get those. How long do you plan on signing this agreement for? A lot of agreements are signed for around 6 months, but maybe you're not so sure about your working relationship with this agent. So you've decided that you're only going to sign a 1 or 2 month agreement. And if it's great, then you will extend it. You can terminate it at any time as well. So don't worry too much about the date on here. As I mentioned, you can terminate this contract at any time if that working relationship is not for you. This is going to be important here. Let's talk about this. This is where a lot of people are getting confused ever since the NAR settlement. In North Carolina, we always had the buyer agency agreement separate from the listing seller agency agreement. Okay. So on our agreements was always how much are we seeking in compensation? And it was always the fact back then, not always, but most of the time, the case where a seller was paying compensation. So right now, like we're still seeing a lot of the sellers compensating the buyer agents. Ever since NAR, we haven't seen too much change here in the Triangle area, but I can only speak for this Triangle area. I can't speak for all of North Carolina. In fact, I can't even speak for individual sellers. Everybody has their own decision as to whether or not they will offer to pay the buyer's agent's compensation. We will go to the seller and ask that they please cover the compensation. They could say no, they could say that they'll cover a portion, they could say that they're going to cover all of it. Whatever the case may be, it's always a negotiation. So keep that in mind as a buyer. Now, this will affect how you decide to move forward on certain houses. Obviously, a buyer agent isn't going to work for free, unless maybe it's your parent. However, you have to think of it. You don't go to the dentist and not pay them or, an attorney or whatever. The idea is if there is a professional service being given to you, you're going to compensate that person for the professional service. So how much will it be? Will it be a non-refundable retainer just to work with that group that is, just part of working with them? Is there a percentage of the gross sales price that they will be paid? Or have you decided that they will receive a flat fee? Some of the sellers and the new construction are also offering bonuses. All of that information needs to be listed here. And again, it really does say that we will do everything we can to seek compensation from the seller. However, this is our fee. So if the seller does not agree to cover it or cover all of it, What you're signing here is that you, as the buyer, agree to pay it. Our forms always had this information on it. It's just spelling it out with a lot of the NAR terms that they wanted to ensure that we use. Okay, so again, there is a certain amount that a buyer agent will need to be compensated that you've agreed upon. Remember, you're negotiating even with your buyer agent as to what they will accept for compensation. We will seek that from the seller. However, if they don't pay it or pay all of it, then it comes back to you as a buyer to cover it. That is what is being signed here. Now, let's go to dual agency. Dual agency says that I am an EXP agent. If you should choose to buy a house from another EXP agent, that's considered dual agency because we both are under the same firm umbrella, okay? However, I would remain designated, that's that portion there, only to you, meaning I'm not working with the buyer as a listing and you as the seller as a listing and you as the buyer on that listing. I have nothing to do with that seller just because we're all EXP. I'm designated to protecting only you. So yes, you will love to buy a house from another EXP agent because there's so many out there. But as long as your agent stays designated to you, that's what you need to understand. There's dual agency, same firm, designated only to you. That's the key. Material facts here. Again, we always have to tell you when there is dual agency involved. You must know that up front. Surveillance and video. Oh my goodness, this is so funny because I don't know if you can see it here, what I'm highlighting, but they literally had to spell out, buyers, please do not take photos of a person's medicine cabinet or what is in their desk drawer. You know that there had to be a lawsuit at some point that ended up putting it on this form. So common sense. Don't take pictures of the medicine cabinet or the drawer or any personal item and then even go post it somewhere. Illegal, don't do it. Now, also important for you to know that while walking through the home, so many homes have video cameras, video doorbell, and so forth. It is their right as the seller to watch, but they're not allowed to listen. We encourage our sellers not to even watch, but know that it is entirely possible that they're watching, hopefully not listening because it is illegal for them to do so. Other professional advice. Once you go under contract, you're going to say, hey, do you have an inspector, the closing attorney, and so on and so forth. So that's considered professional advice. I have inspectors that I love to work with, and I will refer them to you. You may say, no, my cousin's a home inspector. I'm going to use them. That's fine. We gave you advice, but you ultimately make the decision as to who you will work with. And then at the end, we're going to keep a record of every person that was involved in the transaction. It's called professional services disclosure. You will sign that. So I don't know, in a year from now, if you want to go back to the closing attorney or the home inspector and ask a question, we will have that record keeping sheet there to tell us who did what when. All right. If you're doing an inspection, obviously you have your inspection costs. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, here's really important thing to know. There is confidentiality regarding your offer. Of course, I protect your information as a buyer agent. Anything you tell me is completely confidential between us unless you then say I can share the information. Anything that a listing agent tells me as your buyer agent, I am going to tell you because that's part of the communications and the negotiations. The seller is not allowed to take your offer, your exact terms, go to another buyer and say to them, hey, will you match or do better than this offer and give them the terms? They can't do that. They can negotiate with another buyer and ask them, would you accept this offer if I wanted you to make this? But they cannot tell them exactly your offer price, your due diligence amount, anything. They cannot tell them. Here is a wire fraud warning. You will see several of these as a buyer, making sure that you understand to call the closing attorney before sending the final wire amount to confirm the instructions. Wire fraud is very dangerous and prevalent, so always call to confirm the instructions before sending a wire. There are any additional terms that would be here. Merger termination, for example, if you decide to terminate it, of course, we're not going to hold you hostage. You can terminate the contract at any time. If you are under contract with somebody, though, we still will be honored for getting compensation on that. We can't terminate during the contract. And then the other thing to know here is that if there are any changes to any of the forms, they will be here on these standard forms. Okay, so all changes to forms must be on something created by the North Carolina Commission or by an attorney, not by us just writing up an agreement. An attorney or the Real Estate Commission must modify or create the forms. Then here we have our fair housing policy, not to discriminate for any reason at all. In fact, so much so that you as a buyer should not write a love letter to the seller telling them that you want to purchase the house so your children can run in the backyard. Children are a protected class, and we highly recommend never writing a love letter telling the seller why you want the house. And then everybody signs, and then that is it. So I hope that you enjoyed walking through this. It's a lot of information. I'm happy to go through it with you one-on-one if you should choose to want to work with me or even just get some advice. Please leave a comment below, like, subscribe, share this with anybody who is looking to buy a house so that they can understand what the form has in it. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.